To our first story, a 40-year-old trader has died from Lassa fever in Accra. According to the Ghana Health Service, the deceased, who was unwell for 2 weeks, died at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital here in Accra. A contact case of the woman is currently at the hospital. Let us now bring you details of the statement released earlier by the Ghana Health Service. 2 confirmed Lassa fever cases. Now that's coming from the Ghana Health Service. The Ghana Health Service received notification of 2 confirmed Lassa fever cases from the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research on 24th February 2023. Both cases reside in Accra. The first case was a 40-year-old trader who was unwell for a period of about 2 weeks and finally died at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. The second case, who is a contact of the fatal case, is currently on admission but is very stable. So far, 56 contacts have been identified and are being followed up. The statement continues to say that Lassa fever, a viral hemorrhagic fever, is endemic in Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, Mali, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. Ghana recorded its first case in 2011. Following the notification, the underlisted public health measures have subsequently been undertaken. The first one being public health emergency management committees at all levels. National regions and districts have been activated. Detailed investigation, including environmental assessment, has started. Essential medication and logistics, including personal protecting equipment, PPE, are also being mobilized. Contact tracing and management are ongoing. Quarantine of contacts has been instituted and daily follow-up by health staff is ongoing. Strict infection prevention and control with barrier nursing has been instituted. Sensitization of health staff on Lassa fever has started. Community sensitization and education on Lassa fever are ongoing. The statement goes on to give some brief facts about the Lassa fever as well as some symptoms. But let's jump quickly to the preventive measures that have been outlined by the Ghana Health Service. Prevention relies on promoting community hygiene to discourage rodents from entering our homes. Effective measures include storing grain and other foodstuff in rodent-proof containers, disposing of garbage far from the home, maintaining clean households, and keeping cats. Let us also avoid contact with blood and body fluids while caring for sick persons. The statement concludes by saying that the Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service, in collaboration with our partners, which is to assure the general public that all efforts are being made to contain this outbreak and prevent further spread of the virus. And that statement was undersigned by Dr. Patrick Kumabwaji, who is the Director General of the Ghana Health Service. Joining us on phone now is the Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Franklin Asiedu Bekwin. Doc, thanks for connecting with us. This is a new development. What can you tell us particularly about the Lassa fever?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
All right.
So, Lassa fever, I would say it is not a common condition in Ghana. So, if you confirm one case, we declare it as an outbreak. I mean, the first one that we had in Ghana was way back in 2011. And after that, I think that year we had 2 outbreaks. And another one, I think, 2013. So it's not very common. But basically, it is a zoonotic condition. Meaning that the reservoir is an animal. And then, so you transmit the virus, which here is called the Lassa virus, from the animal that gets to man. And then they have man to man. So normally what happens is that you have the Lassa virus in the animal, where here is a rat, a rodent, we call the mastomate. And then as it urinates or passes feces, it would tend to deposit the virus on the food, which then it's been ingested. Then you will now get an infection. So if you get an infection, basically it takes about, let's say, 2 to 21 days for you to manifest the symptoms. And the symptoms vary. So you have a fever, So that's why it's called a Lassa fever. And then we have this general weakness. So those will be the early stages, and we drag on to have headache and sore throat, and you have difficulty breathing. And then the last stage, we have cleaning tendency. So if you look at the case that we presented, which is the first case, which is what the index case. And let me say that at times it's a bit difficult to diagnose because it's not very common. So you realize that it moves through about 2 weeks. It was even seen as a case of malaria, treated, didn't get well, went to another facility, and finally get to go and died. So it is not very easy to diagnose. But when you suspect it, then in that case, you need to take the sample, the lab, and then confirm. So what is happening is that we have a kind of somehow a specific antiviral agent which we use to treat cases of Lassa. So it's called ribavirin. And let me also state that we don't have a vaccine to address Lassa. So what we have now is make sure that there are two things you need to do. Try to do what you call environmental management, because the rodent or the rat reside in areas that are untidy. So when you have areas of leftover food and things like that, you're going to have this rat moving in and out. And I don't think you can see urine or feces of those tiny rats on your food. So you pick them and then you get infected. So that's why if you look at our write-up, they are prescribing the solutions, making sure that you have a clean environment, make sure that your food is well covered. And then some instances people keep cats, so they will catch this rat or the masturbation we talk about. And then the other issue, because you may have a disease in man to man, what you need to do is to prevent yourself from getting contaminated with the body fluid or the blood of an infected person. So basically, those are the things that we have put together in our write-up.
All right. Talking about preventive measures, what measure are you instituting with respect to safeguarding our borders?
We've got to.
With regards to safeguarding our borders, I mean, control mechanisms at our respective borders.
Okay, so what we've done is that we've given an initial sensitization of our hotel staff. We're actually going to do a proper training to be sure that the people coming in and out are screened. You know, we have what we call the health declaration form that will give us a lot of information about the passengers who cross our borders. So that will help us be able to identify cases at the port of entry. For now, what we did was that yesterday we had this big meeting. So we tried to activate our national public health emergency management mechanism in place. So all the regional directors were part of the meeting. So they are also going to activate all their regional public health emergency management committees. So everybody is on high alert. The idea is that if the clinician does not think of it, he cannot confirm it. So one thing that we should also send an alert, sending out the case definitions, what you should look out for when somebody comes to you. So the fever is not always malaria, it could be other things. So those are things that we've done to make sure that we improve the sensitivity of our surveillance system to get the cases very early. We are also trying to make sure that we're able to contain or identify all contacts, which is very important to if you want to overcome an outbreak. So that's one thing that we are trying to do, making sure that we get all the contacts and then we follow them up for the next week 1 day.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc, for connecting with us and serving us with the relevant updates. As and when we have to connect, we'll reach out again. Thank you. Now, outside of our local jurisdiction, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, of Nigeria is ready to begin the collation of results as the National Collation Center has now been opened. Joy News is learning that voting is still underway in a number of states in the country. Speaking on Joy News yesterday, co-convener of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, James Ugo Chukwu, said that though there were violence at some polling stations, the election in general was peaceful.
So far, I think we've recorded a lot of impressive things here, both negative and positive. But let me start on the positive note. I think we are impressed as a situation room that for the first time in the past 4 general elections, having the election holding as scheduled. Because remember, in 2011, we were already in the field when the election was cancelled. Then in 2015, election was rescheduled because of, it was cancelled again because of security concerns. Then in 2019, the election was cancelled some few hours to the election day. Then today, the election held as planned, despite all the security threats that were imminent, the Naira swap and the cash crunch that is bedeviling the country. In the past few months, the election still went ahead to take place. So we commend the election management body for pulling this through, despite all the challenges. The other impressive things we recorded is the large turnout of enthusiastic and resilient Nigerians. People turned out in mass today to vote, and despite the fact that there are some kind of challenges and all that, of course, people still remain put in the polling unit to cast their vote. Another thing we can record that is a positive for us is a very minimal case of election violence, despite the threat that we have all over the country, especially in the southeast, for instance. The announcement from Simon Ekpa from Finland made a lot of us to get worried if that's going to affect the turnout of people in the southeast. But as we can see, we had very minimal incident of violence across the country. And let us not forget that this is a general election. And by the time we start mentioning violence and all that, we need to relate it to the size of the country, as it were. Now, coming to that relates to the activity of the security operatives. The security operatives proved to be very professional in their conduct in terms of their level of preparedness and, of course, responding to election emergencies. So these areas that we had pockets of violence and disruption of the process, the security were able to step in to curb the tide, and it didn't, dovetail to something very ugly.
Right, joining us via Zoom is Kayla with Channel Television, and she's going to be serving us with updates with respect to the ongoing proceedings. Kayla, thanks for connecting with us. The results have started trickling in. From your end, paint a picture of how it is all looking like. Kayla, can you unmute so that we are able to hear you properly?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's loud and clear. I was making the point that as of now, we do know here that the results have started trickling in. What picture can you paint, given the numbers that have come so far?
Yes, so the results are coming in from across the country. The collation center is officially open, and we're expecting the results from the states to start coming in. And then, of course, the announcements will be made as the figures start coming in. James is absolutely correct. We had a largely peaceful exercise, although there were pockets of violence in many parts of the country, especially in the south. We saw violence in Lagos, we saw in other parts of southern Nigeria. And these incidents are being reported. Okay, so INEC has a portal where you can actually make those reports. And then in cases where people were disenfranchised as a result of violence or as a result of anything that happened in whatever polling unit, those elections will be held again. That is a promise that we've been given from INEC. But when it comes to collation, yes, the results have started coming in. I covered the elections here in Abuja. We had fears running up to this election. The BVAS machine was one of the biggest fears we had. I think it was one of the polling units I went to in Guarimpa where the BVAS machine wasn't working, and they had to go get another BVAS machine from INEC. So that was sorted out, at least in my front. I saw that being sorted out. But again, this is the largest turnout of voters I have ever seen in the nation's capital. The nation's capital is notorious for voter apathy. But this time, yesterday, we had so many people coming out for this election. And of course, we're watching to see how that impacts on the results that we will be hearing in the next few days.
Right. Now, somewhere in 2019, I mean, with respect to the 2019 general election, it took about 3 days for the final results to be declared. Given the fact that new systems have been put in place, are we going to see the results much earlier in this particular contest?
I doubt it very much. I think that the results are going to take longer. I actually think it's going to take longer than the number of days that have been given. But we'll be watching at most a week. But let's see what happens as the days unfold.
Right. Now, on the face of the numbers that you are privy to, the figures that have trickled in so far, are you able to paint a picture with respect to who appears to be making inroads closer to the presidency? I mean, with respect to the 3 top flight candidates, Atiku, Peter Obi, and then the other one. Hello, Kayla, can you hear me? Well, it appears we're having some challenges trying to connect with Kayla, but hopefully we'll get her back on for the conversation. Meanwhile, the National Secretary of the Inter-Party Advisory Council of Nigeria, Yusuf Dantale, says that he's also happy with the process.
Listen, I would say I have to commend the umbrella body, the umpire, the INEC, okay, for what they have done. Conducting election in Nigeria is like conducting election for the whole of Africa. Okay, so, and what we see now, the INEC is conducting election using the reviewed Electoral Act, which is strange. So many things have changed. There were additional polling units. So we have just, apart from pockets of complaints that we get from people, maybe that could not immediately locate their polling units. And somehow the INEC chairman came out to make some clarifications. Okay, before Nigerians see that nobody is disenfranchised. That is one. Two, yes, we have pockets of disturbances, people going to destroy ballot boxes because they were living in the past, believing that the system remains the same thing as it was before, okay? Outside that and the insecurity, which the INEC chairman mentioned, but on a general scale, I think the process is fair and it's good and commendable.
And there are this renewed reports of violence, attacks on some machinery or at some polling centers. Are you taking note of that as well? And don't you fear that that could mar the beauty of the process?
No. I think the ratio is not as bad as it will affect that can affect the election, because the INEC chairman made it very categorically clear that some of the things that some of the machines that were attacked or maybe still confiscated were recovered because of the backup that INEC have, okay, envisaging some of this contingency.
Now, the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, has been addressing the country on the collation process so far.
My colleagues, the chairmen of electoral commissions from East, West, and Southern Africa, representatives of the various security agencies, the media, national and international, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, I welcome you all to the formal opening of the 2023 Presidential Election Results Collation Center. As some of you are aware, collation of presidential election results in Nigeria is done at 4 levels. After the conclusion of voting, counting, and recording of results at the various polling units. The results are first tallied and collated at the 8,809 registration areas or wards The collated ward level results are tallied and collated at the 774 local government areas nationwide. Thereafter, they are tallied and collated in each of the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. The collated figures for each state and the Federal Capital Territory are finally collated here in Abuja, where the announcement of the outcome of the election will be made by the returning officer for the presidential election, who also doubles as the Chief Electoral Commissioner of the Federation. And this is a duty that I'm privileged to perform, and it will be done here at this venue. As we commence the concluding processes, it is my duty to explain the procedure and set the ground rules for the proceedings as follows. 1, all accredited agents, observers, the media, the diplomatic community, and security agencies should adhere to the sitting positions assigned to them. 2, results for each state of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory shall be presented by the state collation officer for the presidential election, or simply put, the SCOP, who will also serve as the collation officer at state and the FCT level. After collecting the results at state level, the SCOP shall be accompanied to Abuja by the resident electoral commissioner and security agencies. On arrival at the collation center, the SCOP shall be received by the collation secretariat, which shall organize the sequence of presentation. The returning officer shall invite the SCOP, the state collation officer for the presidential election, accompanied by the resident electoral commissioner, to the seat we are going to provide to my left for the presentation of the results. The SCOP, following the format for the presentation of results, shall loudly announce the votes scored by each political party in the state, including reports of cancellations and areas where elections did not hold, if any. The returning officer then invites comments and observations, if any, from the polling agents. The returning officer requests the SCOP to submit the original copy of Form EC8D. When all the SCOPs have presented their results, the returning officer shall display the sealed copies of result sheets EC8DA, which is the summary of results of elections on state-by-state basis. The EC8E, the declaration of results for the election, and EC40G3, summary of registered voters in the polling units where elections were either cancelled or not held. And I will have the privilege of displaying the blank forms before proceeding starts, after the receipt of the reports from the various state collation officers. Next, the returning officer shall complete the EC8DA and announce the votes scored by each party, and thereafter will invite the polling agents to endorse the form. The returning officer then completes the EC40G3 and compares it with Form EC8DA to ascertain if any of the candidates has satisfied the requirements of the law to proceed with declaration. If satisfied, the returning officer completes Form EC8E and makes a declaration of winner. And finally, the returning officer invites the agents of political parties to receive duplicate copies of the EC8DA and EC8E, which is the final declaration of results. Having set the ground rules, from today, the collation center is hereby declared open until the final determination of the 2023 presidential election. During the course of proceedings, there may be interlude or adjournments. This will be announced by the returning officer as the need arises. As soon as any of the scopes arrives, the process of collation will begin. Once the process begins, the collation center will be open all day and all night, subject only to short breaks as may be announced by the returning officer. The official results will be shown on several screens here at the collation center. There are a number of screens to my left and right. There is also a giant screen behind me on which we will be projecting the results that the scopes are presenting for collation. I appeal to all political parties and media organizations to draw their figures only from the official results released by the Commission as the only body constitutionally responsible for releasing official election figures. When the scopes arrive, they will sit in the open. So there will be seats at the end of the hall. To my right, you will see black leather chairs. That is the holding area for the state collation officers for the presidential election. And then by the side to my right, you will see a table there. That is the collation secretariat. And the collation secretariat is directly under me. So everything that we are going to do here will be done in the open. There is no other room where any other procedure is holding outside this hall. Yes, we have our situation room, but that is just the situation room for the commission. But once collation starts, everything begins and ends in this hall and in the open. As the collation of results progresses, the Commission may find it necessary to brief the nation on matters relating to the election, but unrelated to the collation of results. When the need for such briefing arises, it will not be done here in the collation center. A media center has been prepared in Aso Hall, right behind this building, but within the premises, these premises, for such briefings. Aso Hall has actually been prepared as our media.
All right, so that was the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, bringing us up to speed with the ground rules that would govern the collation of the results. Now, we're turning our attention to Lagos, where there is a report on how the elections were conducted.
From start to finish, security operatives are part of the electoral process. In Lagos, for most parts, voters turned out early, joined the queue and voted. To understand the security plan for the election, we joined the Commissioner of Police in the state for a surveillance tour. Police said they've got the land covered. They said they've got the waters covered. These particular movements is to further secure the state. It's the area surveillance of the state. We've taken up from the Ikeja airport. We're going to Ekpe. Ekpe is a suburb of Lagos State. Of course, we're also still going to Ikorodu. These are outskirts of the state, and what better way to cover them than this bird-eye view?
Across the state, it's been the feedback has been that of largely a very peaceful and orderly exercise.
In Ekpe Township, most polling units are quiet, and the process seemed smooth. Ikeja, Ogudu, and other parts of Lagos seemed calm as well.
Let him weigh down. Let him wind down. Okay. Check the other.
Police tried to enforce the restriction of movement in some parts of the state.
Hey, come with that boss. Come with the boss.
In Mafoluku area of the state, election materials are left in ruins after an attack on some polling units in the area. The electoral officials packed their bags and whatever is left of the INEC materials. The environment is no longer safe for them, they say.
It's an admixture of very peaceful conduct in most parts. But we also recorded isolated instances of thuggery. One was the one we just returned from, which I led with the DC operations at Mafoluku, specifically Branco Road, the clusters of Ebola units there. They had issues, and we went in there. We were able to stabilize the situation and rescue the INEC officials.
Away from Lagos, there's a report of violence in Edo State. Suspected hoodlums destroyed ballot boxes at the point of counting. The Commissioner of Police in Edo State, when contacted, said he's aware of cases of thuggery reported in some polling units, but will not confirm the incident until he has full details.
Well, that report was put together by our partners, Channels Television. Now, let's return home, where former President John Dramani Mahama is calling on religious leaders to speak truth to power. For him, the situation where some churches become selective in their criticism of government is unacceptable. Addressing the induction ceremony of the new General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God Church, Ghana, the former president said that the church must be bold and direct when governments do not get it right.
The church does not exist only to pray for leaders. It exists also to provide suggestions and guidance to leaders. Because after all, the church does not hang in the sky. The church exists in society. And whatever happens in society affects the church. Today, with the economic crisis that we are in, it affects our congregation all across the country. And so it's necessary for the church to continue speaking out anytime it thinks that things are not going properly. And that's why I want to congratulate the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Church Council for the recent letter that they addressed to government, giving some suggestions about what government should do in the midst of this crisis. And I expect that this should be done no matter which government is in office. There are many times when men of God and moral society who should speak up become quiet when one government is in and then become very loud when another government is in. We must not shout Jansa for we're here in one government and then go quiet in another one.
Now, the ceremony also saw Reverend Stephen Wengam, the lead pastor of Cedar Mountain International Church in Accra, officially inducted as the new General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God Church, Ghana. The former president urged him to lead the development of the church.
I know that some churches have convention centers and places like that, beautiful places like that. And I note the church of my former chairman, the Pentecost Church, have a very beautiful convention center outside Kaswa there somewhere. But I spoke with Reverend Wengam and we conspired, and I'm telling Elder Ofosuampofo to tell Reverend Nyamiche that our Centenary village is going to be bigger and more beautiful than your convention center. And may it not suffer the fate of some national cathedrals that I know. We shall build this one, and I'll be one of the chief fundraisers.
Staying on this development, the new General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God Church of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Stephen Yenusom Wengam, called on all relevant stakeholders to work towards finding a lasting solution to the conflict in Boko. Delivering his maiden address after his induction ceremony, Reverend Wengam used the opportunity to appeal to factions in the Boko conflict to yield to the persuasive influences of traditional authority and opinion leaders to ensure that peace returns to the area.
With keen interest, the withdrawal of the court order issued for the arrest of a new Boko Naba. This development does not obscure the fact that the Boko conflict is potentially corrosive to Ghana's reputation as the most peaceful nation in West Africa and second in the whole of Africa. No efforts should be spared at containing the hypersensitive and supremely complex situation which threatens to cascade into security challenges of unthinkable proportions. For the sake of peace and the name of God, we make our most passionate appeal to all sides.
He also called on the nation to shun vices that tend to slow the development of the country.
We also note the chronic difficulties in tackling corruption, illegal mining, environmental bankruptcy, despondency, dishonesty, and all forms of indiscipline in Ghana. The solution we prescribe is holiness, which is the themes here for Assemblies of God Ghana. Holiness for revival. Citizens steeped in holiness will not tell blatant lies, inflate prices of goods and services, falsify procurement figures, steal state funds, pollute water bodies, litter their surroundings, denigrate their neighbors, assassinate the character of their political opponents, do shoddy work, laze around during working hours, or exploit their workers. The spirit of holiness will definitely insulate the people against evil, catalyze them to excel, and empower them to pick the nation up from its socio-economic pickle.
So that was the newly inducted General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God Church of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Stephen Yenusom Wengam. Now, youth groups in the Upper West region are saying no to political violence. They say they have had enough of it and would not allow themselves to be used to foment trouble during elections. At a peace and health walk held in Wa, where over 60 youth groups, including political parties, participated, they said that politics must be used as a tool for development and not a distractive tool. Joy News' Upper West regional correspondent Rafik Salam joined the walk and now reports from Wa.
The Peace and Health Walk, Christian Walk with Jonjo, had participants from 64 identified youth groups or camps in the Upper West region. This is the third edition of the walk, started 4 years ago by the Wajengberi Youth Base Camp. It was massive. Several thousands of the youth turned out in the event, seen by many as the largest non-political event ever held in the region. They started from their Jemberi base, moved and spilled all principal streets in the one municipality amid music from brass band and local drums. They later converged at the starting point and addressed by the leadership. Conveners of the walk spoke to Joy News on why they embarked on such a mission.
This should have been the 4th edition, but because of the COVID that came last year, the 3rd edition was truncated, so this happens to be the 3rd. We've done the 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd. As I earlier on said, it is about unity, peace, and then bringing people together. As he stated, a man's network, they say, determines his network. We are bringing people on board. As the youth we see here, we want to bring people together so we can see the people who are already into the society, that are useful people. The youth here will learn from them. That is the social networking. And then when you come, you see a lot of other political parties, other youth groups, and people who we don't even know. But because of the peace we are trying to bring together, they've all left everything just to come and then make this program a success.
Of late, we've realized that the whole world isn't at peace. So if such programs are organized to bring on board different political parties, youth groups, religious bodies, tribes, it will enhance peace and unity, because in their work, you realize that you'll be working with a colleague who might be of a different tribe, but due to that, you can chat, talk, and then release tension, then build some rapport.
Among the mains of the participants at the walk were supporters of the ruling New Patriotic Party (NPP) and the opposition National Democratic Congress (NDC). The leadership of the two main political parties has vowed to use the opportunity to say no to violence.
Our main reason is just to tell the youth that politics today is our culture, like it or not. And it is for development. It's a developmental tool, not a destructive tool. I always told our youth that we are the future leaders and the future is now. Anybody that will incite us to do anything violent, that will distract the kids that we are enjoying today in Ghana, let's say no.
You know, elections come with a lot of dynamics, violence, and a lot of misunderstandings. But when we come together like this and we have every young man on board, it tells us every time that we can do things together as a people, putting away all the differences that we share as a community there. Being an MPP person and being fortunate that Jonjo Palace is quite connected to the MPP, it tells me that the youth of the MPP is growing, that a camp that belongs to the MPP can attract people as many as the opposition party to come and join in such a celebration. I urge leadership of the party to focus on such groups so that we empower them to expand their strengths and attract more young people to want to align themselves with Jonjo Palace.
The walk also has the blessing of the overlord of the Walla traditional area and represented by Gona Najamal Adamakwela.
Coexistence amongst the youth groups within town. Hitherto, there used to be friction amongst the youth in town, but this year we have seen peace and unity amongst the youth, and that gives us hope that going further, particularly next year being an election year where the youth are likely to be used to foment trouble and destabilize the peace in town, we are really more happy that yes, there is hope for peace to prevail in the coming years.
Conveners of the event say, though the event is over, they will continue to preach peace among the various youth groups in the region in order to propel the region's development to a greater height. Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam.
Now, the former head of the Child Health Unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital and the University of Ghana Medical School, Professor Janet Nikwe, says that people simply have forgotten about HIV/AIDS, and that is the reason for the increment in infections. In an interview on Personality Profile with Aisha Ibrahim, the doctor, who has done extensive research on the disease, said that education must be intensified.
I also became very interested in HIV. As you know, that was a new disease in the world in the early 1980s. And originally, people thought it was a disease affecting homosexuals. But we discovered, my husband and I discovered that here, the patients were mostly female.
Okay.
And this was an announcement to the world. The world was very surprised. And then we set about researching why that was so. And we found out that a number of girls left Ghana to work abroad, thinking they were going to be housemaids, but they were forced into prostitution.
Okay.
And so when they came back, some of them had HIV infection and they gave it to other people. And that's how it started spreading in Ghana. I also did some work to find other aspects of why it was spreading, and found out that traditional healers at that time, sometimes they were using knives to scarify patients. And these knives were not sterilized. They were simply used from patient to patient. So we were able to give some advice to the traditional healers as to how to improve their treatment. One particular piece of research that I was very happy about, we were seeing a number of babies admitted to the ward, very, very ill, and some of them died. And asking the mother what had been going on, some of them said they had been using a particular plant as an enema or as snuff for their baby who had a cold. And then one night, a baby came in with the same problem. I found that the baby's heart was very, very slow.
Wow.
And I had to sit all night doing heart compressions, you know.
Okay.
And in the morning, the baby was better.
Wow.
It didn't die. So I asked the mother to bring in the plant that she'd used. I didn't know what it was. So I took it to the botany department at Legon, and they said it was something called yellow oleander.
Okay.
And they also showed me a book where the plant was used as a poison.
Oops.
Yes, for arrows, for killing people.
Goodness.
Yes. So I asked the Graphic newspaper to come and talk about it. They published the paper in the newspaper, and we never saw another patient with that problem. So I was very happy.
Wow.
So you know, the research should ideally be useful for the country that you're doing it in.
Recently, we're hearing that the infection rate is increasing. What could be accounting for that?
I think that people have started ignoring it. They're forgetting about it. At the beginning of the epidemic, my husband did a lot of educational work with clinics, hospitals, the community, schools. I even went up to Agogo and gave a talk to the church there.
Okay.
And people have just forgotten about it, basically. The country needs to keep up with the education. And in fact, I did a survey of how people knew about HIV, and it turned out that the radio was the best medium to get information over to the population.
Okay. So what would it take for the numbers to start reducing, as we saw some time ago in Ghana?
People have to be aware. People have to use condoms, to not have multiple partners. And if you're a pregnant woman, you must be tested. If you're a pregnant woman and you have HIV, you can be given medication to stop the baby catching it from you.
Now, girls in the Upper East and Volta regions can now heave a sigh of relief because they will now receive sanitary pads to aid their menstrual hygiene. Prices of the products have shot up in recent times, making it difficult for girls to buy. But the Sylvia Lawson Foundation has been launched, and it is designed to help the vulnerable get sanitary pads for free. Linda Dako has more on the following report.
Cities where sanitary products and health experts are available for support, young women are expected to go through the period journey smoothly. But that cannot be guaranteed in the wake of the economic crisis that has worsened the living standards of many. The situation gets worse for girls in deprived rural areas who have often had it rough. These girls are unable to buy sanitary pads, therefore exposing them to various infections, which also takes a toll on their academic work. The situation is, however, set to change with the intervention of the Sylvia Foundation. Speaking to Joy News at the launch of the foundation, the founder, Sylvia Lawson, had this to say.
There are a lot of challenges that the girl child faces. But this particular challenge is a challenge that they were born with. They don't have a choice but to menstruate. They can't decide when to menstruate and when not to menstruate. She'll go through it. So if she does not have the sanitary napkins, we have to step in. I believe there are a lot of people in their homes who also have that in their hearts. People want to do good, but they don't know how to channel that or what to do. Give us whatever support that can push us to achieve even the phase 1 of the 25,000 pads that we want to give out.
MCE for Tema West, Anna Adukwe Ado, lauded the move and noted her outfit is poised to resolve issues related to the girl child.
This is a very important initiative that she has started. And, we all know that women or girls across the world have been marginalized. And this is one of the things that can also prevent them or make them also marginalized within the society. So I believe that it's a very good initiative, it's laudable, and we must all give her our necessary support. Women across the world has been marginalized. Education is key, healthcare is key. I normally go around, have the time to educate girls that education is key in their life, to be well equipped as they grow, because as a woman, if you are not educated, to a large extent, it affects you.
For some students, here's how significant the intervention is.
I think this initiative by the Sylvia Lawson Foundation is a very innovative one, since it's going to go a long way to help the less privileged ones in the rural areas and also in developing areas. We pray that this initiative today is not only going to be for people around the ages of 15 and to 20, but it's also going to help older women who don't even know how to use sanitary pads.
It's going to help the child. Girls that can't afford the pad, they can be able to come to school, won't miss classes, and won't indulge in other stuff to get pregnant, so that they can be future leaders of the country. So I think it's going to help a lot.
Linda Darko's report for Joy News.
That'll be all for now. My name is Kwesi Schandorf. For more, log on to www.myjoyonline.com. Do have a pleasant afternoon. Bye-bye.